If you got per diem money at any time in the last 65 years, you probably came in contact with Gus. In fact, Larry Severs has got a great picture of Larry, and we're not sure if that's per diem or payoff money for the Clemson catch. Larry may have got more than $15 that week. If you got tickets, you came in contact with Gus. Now, all of us old guys know that we wouldn't have gotten through college if it hadn't been for tickets. And back in the day, the business that hadn't been for tickets, because during that era, every engagement ring that was bought with ticket money and forwarded jewelers. And every stereo was bought at England Sound. And ticket money, the ticket business became a cottage industry, which everybody followed Gus's lead.
Reggie White had more aunties. Every week he'd come up with a new one to get a double ticket.
Now, if you were a majorette, you came in contact with Gus. Somehow, Gus and Hayward wrangled their way to choose the majorettes. And what Gus would do is he'd use the ticket office as kind of how he decided who was going to be a majorette. They'd work in the ticket office. And if you worked in the ticket office, or if you had a wife or girlfriend who needed a job, they came in contact with Gus. And the reality is, they kept getting better looking and ticket sales went up. We thought it's because we had winning football teams. I think it's because Gus was ticket office. You know, I learned some lessons from Gus through the years. One, I learned that tickets do not come in ones or odd numbers. You buy tickets in even numbers and you don't get one ticket. Tickets do not sell in a single. The other thing I learned is you always keep a supply of tickets holed away for big games because you just might need to pull them out. And before computers, Gus had tickets hidden somewhere or everywhere, and only Gus knew where they were. But Gus could always come up with a ticket at the 11th hour if you needed one for the right person at the right price.
Wait a minute now.
And then one other thing I learned from Gus is Gus never forgot anything the general told him. One day we were going through this arduous task of picking inductees for the Hall of Fame, and you know, when you can only pick 11 inductees from across the state, you can only get 2 for sure from East Tennessee, and then the others are from the other regions and then across the state. And we were debating somebody one day, and Gus said he's the best tackle that ever played at Tennessee. And I looked at him and I said, Gus, how do you know? He said, because the general told me he was. End of statement. He is in the Hall of Fame. The other thing I learned from Gus is you need to be loyal to the University of Tennessee. We've all been a big part of this, but the University of Tennessee has been a big part of each of us. And we've gotten a whole lot more from this university than we've given to them. And it's a blessing, and it's a part of our traditions. It's part of our heritage, and everybody in this room, I think your blood runs true orange. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Kessling and Gus. But remember, Gus gets the last word.
Let's thank Bill. We have a video of Gus. Sure. Let's turn your attention to the video board, and we'll look at a Gus Manning's life. We have, Gus, you remember all those people on that video you just saw? You remember all of them? Some special guests here tonight that we'd like to recognize before we really get started. You saw a lot of pictures of Haywood Harris, Gus's running mate for so many years. And Haywood's wife is with us tonight, Carolyn Joe. Where's Carolyn Joe? Thanks, Carolyn Joe. And his son, Jimmy. Good to see you. And of course, the Mannings are here tonight. Gus's son, Sammy Joe. Sammy. And his wife, Meg. Good to see you, Meg. And Elizabeth. And the sons, Joe and Chad. Good to see all of you here tonight. I think, Gus, we all remember the first time we met you. We met you. You know, everybody remembers the first time they saw Gus Manning. First time I ever saw you was at Bill Myers Stadium.
That's right, I remember you.
Yeah. I was in college, and I was working there, putting up the flag and selling tickets, and you were selling beer.
That's right.
Playing Taunton. We'll tell that story a little bit later. What Gus would do, though, seriously, he was the beer guy at Bill Myers Stadium, the only guy that sold beer in the whole stadium. Now, maybe on a good night with, 300 or 400 people maybe at the game for the old Knoxville Sox. So here's how Gus did it. He took tickets out to Tip Tipton at Budweiser and got him to give him the beer for free. And then he went to Coke and gave them tickets, and they gave him a cooler to sell the beer in. Pat Roddy, yeah. So Gus has nothing in this, and every night, the game starts at 7:30. At 7:20, Gus is rolling this Coca-Cola cooler full of beer down to sell, and he would, no cash register, no nothing. Cash on the barrel, and Gus is just pocketing the money into little kind of shoe boxes. And
I also had Richard Moe sing.
Oh, that's right.
I couldn't sell beer that night. Richard Moe's daughter came up to me and said, "Gus, get me one of them beers. Father can't see me."
So, anyway, but who knows what Tip Tipton, the beer he's giving him. I mean, Tip is basically cleaning out his cooler every night, giving him Falstaff and Lone Star and Hudipole and Burger Beer and all this stuff. So if you wanted a Budweiser, you better get there by about the second inning, because by that time everything else was gone.
It gives it to the team, all in red.
Well, you wouldn't give it to the team, yeah. So anyway, the 1978, the Sox win the Southern League Championship. Tony La Russa was the manager, the old St. Louis Cardinal guy. And so he said that the only downside to the whole night when they won the championship at Bill Myers Stadium was and this is Tony's quote, so excuse me, the horse piss beer that Gus sent down to the locker room.
Tony La Russa won the World Series.
Yeah, he did. But anyway, so what Gus did, this is last game of the season, he just cleaned out the cooler and gave them what was left as a big celebration.
He'd come down there and complain all the time. Tony wouldn't, but I'd give him a Budweiser every once in a while.
But the poor players, they got the other stuff.
They'd drink that red ale.
That red ale. Anyway, great memories, and Gus and Don Blackstock, and when they weren't playing Tong, were selling beer at Bill Myers Stadium.
Your wife worked there also.
Well, she did. You taught her some bad things. I had to break her up. Bad things. We've got some great roasters tonight. Let's start with Peyton Manning, who sent a video along.
In my freshman year at Tennessee, I was having lunch at Gibbs Hall next to Brad Lampley, a teammate there, and saw this guy driving up in this little, I never seen anything like it, little half golf cart, if you will, a little buggy, and I turned to Brad and I said, "Brad," I said, "who is that guy, coming up in that little cart?" And Brad turned to me and he said, "Peyton, that is the mayor of Knoxville right there. He's very involved, loves to keep up with all Tennessee sports and is around a lot. You'll see him around a lot." So I was kind of impressed that the mayor liked to come to eat in the dorm room and come and watch practice. So anyway, saw this little guy kind of waddling into the to the cafeteria, and I walked up and just said, "Mayor, my name's Peyton Manning. I'm a freshman quarterback here at Tennessee. Nice to meet you." And old Gus looked at me like, "What in the world was I talking about?" Gus, I don't know if you remember that, but that is a true story. That was the first time I met you, and Brad Lampley set me up pretty good. But in thinking about it, Gus, I'm pretty sure mayor is the only job that you have not held there in Knoxville, Tennessee. In reading your bio, you've had every single job there at the University of Tennessee in the sports information department, football department, you name it. And so mayor is the one job that you haven't had, and you know what? You'd be a darn good one, I guarantee you. So Gus, I just want to tell you that it was an honor to meet you that first day coming out of what we now call the Gus cart. That is the official name for it. I know you take a lot of pride in that Gus cart. I know you sleep in it from time to time as well, but I am honored to have the same last name as you, Gus Manning and Peyton Manning. Proud to be connected to you that way, but even more proud to be your friend. And I appreciate your support of me. Nobody loves the Tennessee Vols more than Gus Manning, and I'm just honored to know you. And it was a real treat last year to be a part of the ceremony, the renaming of Gate 16, Gus Manning Gate, appropriately named. And as you told me on that particular day, that this was a paying gate. There'd be no freeloaders coming through that gate, which that's talking to a lot of people. And I'm sure you guys in the audience know who you are. Weitzel, Woodall, Elliott, yeah, you know who you are. Y'all be sure y'all pay to go through that gate. Don't be trying to get into a game free. If you do that, you know, go another route. But Gate 16, the Gus Manning gate, is a paying gate. You better have money for a ticket. Those are Gus Manning's orders. So, Gus, you're the best. Congratulations on the night. We love you. Go Vols.
Testing.
We're back. Give us your thoughts on Peyton. Yeah.
This guy, you know, tremendous guy. He's a real Tennessee fan, the best. And we've had a lot of fun together.
But you were serious about the gate now. You don't want freeloaders on a gate.
You too.
I go in 15, I stay away from that.
We got a lot of freeloaders in there. Peyton hit it right. A lot of these guys, all these old ex-Tennessee football players, they're expecting a free pass.
How do you think they paid for their meals tonight?
Some of them came up and asked me, said they missed their lunch money. I didn't give it to them last they were playing here. But I'm not paying anything tonight, or either. You know, I had to give them money for their meal money after the game, you know. A lot of them tried to get it twice. Hold on to it.
You're pretty smart. Gus, of course, started in 1951 in the athletics department, worked for 6 athletic directors.
Yeah, I worked for a lot of them.
How many head coaches?
They're still counting.
15 of them. Yeah. One of the ADs that he worked for is here tonight. Let's welcome Dave Hart.
Dave Hart.
Dave Hart's right here. That's why And Joe Crum will be on the program a little bit later, so that's one of the ADs you work for as well.
She roasted me.
Oh yeah, she's going to get you. Also,
I'll get her back.
There you go. Our first roaster in person is the head football coach at the University of Tennessee when the Volunteers started, Gus, really to turn things around back in the late 70s, John Majors.
Is he here?
Yeah, he's here. Let's welcome Coach Johnny Majors.
Majors, I get the last word. Goodbye.
I haven't had my checklist this week. You can't order me around anymore. Gus used to pass the checks around after we played a game on the plane or on the bus. But Gus, I haven't been on a plane or bus lately. I'm not going to take any orders from you unless you give me a check. Arkansas is in the Southwest. I think it's the Big 12, and I'm moving on. In Iowa State in the Big 12 at one time, and also at the Big East in Pittsburgh and back to Tennessee. So I've met a lot of publicity directors. Some I liked, some I didn't, but Gus has to be the most outstanding publicity director in the history of the United States sports. Football.
What do you want, John?
And for instance, I know this people probably don't know this, but I researched Gus some before I came over tonight, and I'm not a Bible student, but I think Methuselah is a famous Bible person, of all time. I refer to Gus tonight as the Methuselah of football athletic directors of publicity, because I've heard this by legend that I'm pretty sure he was here chasing footballs in 1891 when Tennessee started football the first year. And I know Gus is very modest publicly, but he likes to be bragged on and given credit for it. I've also heard that he was a person responsible when he was 10 years old, 1891, naming, picking the color orange, which is Tennessee orange, because of the little orange flowers on the side of the hill. So Gus, we have the most unique orange jerseys in the country, and nobody's like it. So you did a great job there. I think you were 10 at the time. You said something about Margaret. Mary Lynn, I just love Margaret. She was very succinct and get to the point, and she could cut your wings pretty quickly if you got kind of smart. So first game or two I came here, I'd already talked to the squad. We'd unloaded the bus at the game site. We were in a hotel. I made my talk to them before dinner, so I was going to have dinner with some of the staff members and our wives. And I thought, well, I'm going to have maybe a little short cocktail. So I went back and knocked on Gus's door, and Margaret answered the door. I said, Margaret, do you all have any cocktails here? She said, you think this is a hospitality room? Margaret got me straightened out a few times. Gus had to be the most outstanding director in America in sports information, because he is absolutely the only person in the country in history that could ever got me second in the Heisman Trophy winner. He got me second in the Heisman. Paul Hornung won it with a 2-8 record. We were 10-0. I'll never forget where I was sitting when Gus gave me the good news. At the East Stadium, where we had our dormitory, underneath the stadium we had our training table, and I was eating dinner with a bunch of other guys at the big tables, and he walked up right to my right. He said, I want you to know some good news. He said, you got second to the Heisman.
Worked like hell to get you second.
And after he said it, you know, I've never had the big head, really. I'm pretty modest overall. I mean, I think so. But for me, that's oh, thank you, Gus. But as he walked away, I said, you know what? I believe Gus is Catholic. I know Notre Dame's a Catholic school, and I think Hornung's Catholic. So, one thing about it, it's a Kentucky Derby, which I went to probably 20 straight years with my wife and friends. Paul Hornung was there every time that I went there. He's a big bettor. He's a great guy. We're good friends. And one thing about it, Gus is proud to said he never, but he said, been disappointed in me. He says, you know one thing about Majors and Hornung? He said, Majors never brought me a mint julep or a drink at the Derby. Hornung always bought me a couple.
True story.
He made a little money. Made one of the best investments of my entire career. When I was a senior, the junior before my senior year, we had tied Georgia Tech here. They tied us by either way, 7-7. Tech won the conference championship, went to the Sugar Bowl, and won the Sugar Bowl against Pittsburgh. We had the whole team coming back next year, except Charlie Coffey, a guard. They had their whole team except an All-American guard as well. We knew that there'd be all the marbles next year at Georgia Tech. So it's about the only smart financial deal I've ever made. I went down to see Gus. I said, Gus, I'm not to buy 6 tickets for the Georgia Tech game. Probably they cost $6, $7, $8 at the time. I bought 6 of them, sold them for $100 a ticket. So Gus, you at least helped me make the only good investment I made in my life. I never gave you part of it, but probably I'll pay you sometime. Gus and my dad were cigar smokers, but they had a great friendship, great relationship. So Daddy would bring up a box of cigars, these fancy Cuban cigars, and give Gus a box of them when he was going to buy his tickets for the next season. So they got along very well. And Gus, I want to let you know, except when Gus put him behind some big steel posts at Lexington, when Bill was playing, my brother, and he put him behind these big posts, and my dad said, Gus, don't ever put me behind those damn big posts again because you won't get any more cigars. So Gus gave him good tickets from that time on. And they had a great relationship, a great friendship. And Gus, I don't have a lot of money left for my family when I'm gone, but I did tell my wife, if something's left over, make sure you give Gus a good box of cigars. Get me second to the house. I used Gus and Haywood to my benefit. I was single when I started coaching here. They picked the cheerleaders. My wife is a beautiful woman. We've been married 57 years. I introduced her to them, and said they gave her a tryout, and she became the basketball cheerleader when she was a freshman. Gus, I do appreciate it. Mary Lynn says, be sure to tell Gus hello. She still likes you, Gus. Thank you.
Diddley, you don't.
Gus and I have had a great friendship. He's one of the most loyal people I've ever known. It's also been legendary mentioned that he also critiqued General Needham's game plans. I don't know that's for sure, but he was loyal to the coaches Bowden White, Harvey Robinson, and General Needham that I was fortunate enough to play for and coach under. Gus, nobody's ever done more for one school than you have. Sincerely, I appreciate it very much. And I tell you one other Horning story quickly too. When I went to the Derby, before I went to the Derby, Horning came down here to cover the 1979 Notre Dame Tennessee game in Knoxville. He was doing TV. So it was after practice, and we were on the practice field. I had my practice togs on, a whistle, and also a sweatshirt and a hat. Took my hat off. He's interviewing me about the Notre Dame Tennessee game coming up in 79. We were underdogs. So we were talking serious business. And right at the last, he hit me with a zinger. He said, now, John, won't you tell all these thousands of people who'll be watching us that you really thought you should have won the Heisman than Paul Horning? He said, the zinger. I said, no, Paul. I thought Jim Brown should have won it. Good to be here, Gus. Congratulations. You know what? You may live longer than Methuselah.
My office right next to my telephone. He told me he was coming in. I took it down and put Bill Johnson's picture in there. He looked at that and I saw him looking at it. He said, they forget you in a hurry around here.
Of course, Gus worked with Coach Bill Battle, who could not be here tonight, but he did send this email, Gus. And it says, when I came to Tennessee in 1966, we all had offices in the stadium. George McKinney and I shared a cubicle upstairs on Coach Dickey's staff, and your ticket office was downstairs, and that was before computers and the entire ticket list was manually operated. Now, the average age, pretty much, of your staff at that time was 65 years old. A couple of years later, we moved into the brand new Stokely Athletic Center. The coaches all had their individual offices, and you had a beautiful, spacious first floor area to accommodate the rising demand for tickets. But the most encouraging thing and the biggest accomplishment you had, maybe in your entire Tennessee tenure, was the transformation of your staff from an average age of 65 to an average age of under 25. And they all look like beauty contest winners. It was a pleasure to visit your ticket offices, and I'm sure the attractiveness of the offices and your staff had a lot to do with so many sellout games when you were the ticket manager. And then he said the second thing I remember was a story of you and Haywood playing golf one day at Dean Hill Country Club. Haywood was in the fairway, and he was maybe 25 or 30 yards ahead of you as you approached with your shot. You swung, the ball took flight directly at Haywood, who couldn't get out of the way, and it hit him in the leg. Haywood started hopping around, hollering at you about why you hit him with a golf ball, and all you hollered back was, Haywood, you just took 100 yards off my shot. You two were an amazing pair for many years, and that's just one of the many great stories of our time together. Thanks for your great service to the many coaches and ADs in Tennessee, and for your friendship all these years. The best to you tonight and to your family for many years to come. You're the best. Bill Battle.
Great guy.
Still is.
Even though he works for Alabama.
Well, yeah. Gus has had a long-running relationship with our rights holders. Used to be Host Communications, Edwin Huster, and now Steve Early, who now runs IMG. So that, yeah, we're down there. They've got look at the video board again, and they have produced a video honoring the career of Gus Manning.
Hello again, topping our broadcast. The season opener at the University of Tennessee is just 4 days away. Fans are already gearing up for the big game, but university officials say they need to be prepared for some changes.
Approximately 200 officers will be working at the UT Games this year. They say that fans should be prepared to have all of their items checked, not just for security reasons, but to make sure they're following the rules.
No TVs and things of that nature, unless they're little portable TVs, you know. But and alcoholic beverages. And, of course, no explosives of any kind. That's the main thing we don't want in there, you know.
That's the people advertising our game.
I'm glad we avoided all that, Gus. You stopped all those deterrents there. So now to expand on their role, please welcome Steve Early, the general manager of IMG, and Glenn Thaxton.
Thank you, Bob. That was a clip, obviously, almost 20 years ago to the day. And we were getting ready to open the new North End Zone upper deck at Neyland Stadium for the first time. But it was only several weeks after the bombing at the Atlanta Olympics. So there was all of this tension and what's Tennessee going to do? There are going to be new rules and regulations. I'm at the barber shop getting a haircut 3 days before kickoff when that story aired, and I literally spit up, came out of the barber chair, and we have held that in our archives for 20 years. And the tape says, Gus Manning, no explosives. So we started thinking, you know, what would be appropriate tonight from the Ball Network? And you've got all of these great decades of great Gus-isms and all of the lines that he's had, but the problem is many of them are indecent and inappropriate. So we had to go a different direction. So what we've decided instead is to give a countdown of the greatest lines that you will never hear Gus Manning say. Isn't that right, Glenn?
That's right, Steve. Let's start off with number 17.
We had 20. We had 20 of them, but somebody edited our speech. You can believe that, so we're down to 17. So there must have been 3 of them that were not appropriate.
Before we get started, I'll tell you, the first time I met Gus was very memorable as well, because he threatened to throw me out of the press box. And I told him about it years later, and he said, well, you probably deserved it. All right, number 17. No thanks, I don't care for a drink.
Number 16. Yes, Haywood, I would love to attend the next meeting of your Knoxville Republicans. Glenn, number 15.
Sorry, I can't be on the cheerleading selection committee. I think that would be a conflict of interest.
Number 14. Boy, I sure miss Doug Dickey.
Number 13. Tickets are not available.
Number 12. I wish I could accept this steak dinner offer, but I've already committed elsewhere.
Number 11. I told you I only want ugly women working in the ticket office.
Number 10. Haywood, for gosh sakes, whatever we do, let's not take a nap.
Number 9, I'm leaving the game early. I've got yard work to do at home.
Number 8, Kathy Go, I told you it's my turn to buy the beer.
Number 7, I would never attend a party without an invitation.
Number 6, General, the Ponte Vedra clubs, they would love to have you and Scrappy Moore back as their guest.
Number 5, I can vouch for this one. You sports information assistants, please feel free to use the copy and postage machine anytime you like.
Number 4, I think it's highly inappropriate to call someone a prick.
You two are.
Number 3, what time is Coach Majors coming over with our Christmas presents?
No, that's funny. I don't care who you are. Number 2, I'm going to call Coach Fulmer and get some advice on how to handle a roast. And the number 1 thing you will never, ever hear Gus Manning utter.
Waiter, I'll take the check.
So with that, the Vol Network raises its glass to the greatest Vol of all, Gus Manning.
I forget my check last year that you all think would give me.
Gus and Steve have had a love-hate relationship for a long time. Is that safe to say? Yeah, safe to say. So anyway, Steve had lost his mom a few years ago. His mom was a great person. And so anyway, we all went to the funeral, and Gus was there. And Gus goes up to Steve after the service and says, "Steve, you did a real nice job. The nice things you said about your mom, she'd have been proud. You did a great thing. Your eulogy was just terrific. You're still a prick, but you did a good job." Am I lying?
It's a true story.
Moving on. Of course, nobody has been around Gus probably more than our next roaster, your friend Bud Ford.
God.
Longtime SID at the University of Tennessee. Please welcome Bud Ford.
Well, I'm partly responsible a little bit for this because Bill was talking about what to do for Gus, and he makes me go to Gus and talk to him about doing this. And Gus's only comment was, everybody there wants a comp. Nobody's going to pay $45 to come have dinner with me. They're all looking for a comp. One claim to fame. I was Gus Manning's paperboy.
What a bad thing.
When Gus and Margaret lived next to West High School, that's where I grew up, I was Gus's paperboy. And I thought I was a pretty good paperboy. You know, Gus sicked his dog on me, and so I go to him and talk to him about it, and he was laughing about it. Now, Gus, today that'd be a lawsuit, but back then it's okay. But I'd have never got my money, but Miss Margaret said I was a sweet boy. So I got paid there. But you know, you talk about Gus and the cart. Before the cart, Gus had a 51 Plymouth Belvedere. This was a small coupe car, and Gus, being in charge of the whole stadium, he used this car to go over to check concession stands and all during the stadium. Now, you know how short the stadium was at that time. You come on the east side, the west side, and also in the south is still a very narrow corridor. So Gus's car that he used, this Belvedere, was a second car, and it was beat up pretty good. I mean, you'd get around and he'd bust a pole or hit something different places, but that was his car. It was parked in the athletic parking lot. Well, one day Gus comes in on a Monday and the car's gone. So he calls the police chief and he says, hey, I'm missing my car, you know, it's gone. It was here last week and it's not there. Well, that particular car and model, you could start that car without a key. You could just switch the ignition. Some of you may remember cars were like that. You could just switch ignition. So somebody took his car. About 3 days later, the police chief calls back and says, Gus, we found your car. He said, well, what kind of condition is it in? Well, it's in good condition. He said, well, where did you find it? There's a pause, and the police chief said, well, we found it down at Eastern State Mental Hospital, Gus. And you know something? Those people may not be as crazy as you think, because they didn't even want your car. And on September 1st, the good Lord willing, Gus Manning will be attending Tennessee's opening game. And he's attended 46, since 1946, he's attended every opening game in Tennessee. And you know, at one time, Gus had a record of 608 games and that he attended, Tennessee games. Now, I questioned him about that a little bit because Haywood got the press tickets, and he had a press box seat. There was Haywood, me, and Gus. Now, in home games, we didn't see Gus very much, and we didn't expect to see him because he was moving around the stadium, doing different things, checking on concessions. But on the road, he didn't have any duties after the team got there. He was free. Well, we noticed when we go to Memphis, a guy that ran that stadium was named Al Brown, and Gus was good friends with him, and we'd never see Gus in that seat. And then we'd play in Legion Field. A guy named Frank Wagner was the manager there. We never saw Gus there either. And I kept saying, you know, Gus has got all these games. Has he actually seen these games? So I know that one thing about it, probably the bill of fare and the beverages were much better in the manager's office than hot dogs in the press box. So I figured that's what was keeping him there. So when he got to 600, I said, this is a good time. I'm going to get him. We had a bunch of people there. And I said, okay, Gus, he said, you said that you've seen 600 Tennessee games. I said, how many games have you actually seen? Well, there was this long pause, and he said, if you're in the stadium, it counts. I guess the other thing I think about Gus, when I first started working in the athletic department in 1964, the administrative staff at the athletic department was 7 people, not counting the coaches. There were 7 people. You had Coach Woodruff, fundraiser, athletic director. You also had Jim McDonald, who was assistant athletic director. Then you had Gus Manning, who was administrative assistant at that time. And then you had Edna Calloway, who was our business manager. And Bill Petty, who's back here. Bill Petty was our promotion director, and there's Haywood me. There were 7 people working as administratively at that time. And I found out real early that Gus was the main cog in all that, without question, because of all the things that he would do. And along with that came just a bunch of stories. Now, I can't tell all of them because they're all about there. But when you think about the things that Gus did and all the activities that he was involved with, it was amazing. And he could always remember things. He never failed to remember what was going on. Back then, there was no computers, that's been mentioned earlier. But there were charts in the athletic ticket office, huge charts that had squares on them and sections. And Gus wrote by pencil everybody's name in those charts who had season tickets, both football and basketball. And I bet you to this day, any old-time season ticket holder, he could probably tell you about what section you're in, what row you're in, maybe what seat, because that was all was in his memory bank. He was also took care of all the travel. Everything that we did, basketball, football travel, game expenses, everything else. And it's amazing that all those things that he did do. Did you know he was a high school referee too? He was a referee, high school football, and small college, both football and basketball. In fact, when I was at West High School, he called a technical on one of our coaches' walk hands because he's in the middle of the floor. But I remember Gus calling our high school games. And I don't think there's any comparison about what he did in the past that Gus always accomplished and the many things that he was able to do. I had one other story I thought I'd do. I was looking at, I can't talk as you do. I know you do. I know it is. we've been to, when they were building the arena, when they first started building the arena, the building contractor at that time was B.B. Anderson, right, Gus? Okay, and they had a little problem there, and they brought on a contractor named Ray Bell. Ray Bell had built a bunch of roads all during Tennessee, and one of the big stretches that he worked on was between Knoxville and Nashville on I-40. So Gus and Ray got to be real good friends. And in part of that, Ray told him one time, he said, you know, the most expensive part of the interstate that was built was on the other side of Cookville, right before you get to Carthage, when you cross the Caney Fork River. He said the meandering Caney Fork River, you have to cross it 5 times. So that was 10 bridges. It's east and west, and you have 10 bridges. Well, Gus has always remembered that. And we've been to Nashville 100 times. 100 times. Every time we're with Gus and Haywood, we come down the mountain, Gus tells a story about the Caney Fork. And we get to the bottom, he goes, Caney Fork 1, Caney Fork 2, Caney Fork 3, Caney Fork 4, and finally Caney Fork 5. Well, everybody in the car knows we're hoping that he'll go to sleep. That on the way back he'll go to sleep. But you know what a bad thing about that? I'm doing it now. He's got me doing it. Every time I go over, I'm counting the cane. And it's a beautiful stretch. You know, to say a lot about Gus, I had the good fortune for 46 years to be with 2 guys, characters. You'd have to call Haywood and Gus great characters. Whether I was their chauffeur or whatever it was, whether I'm Gus's paperboy, you couldn't have had a better group of guys to be involved with, and I was certainly fortunate. And I guess I'll always still be, at age 72 now, just Gus's paperboy, and I wasn't a very good one at that.
Thanks, Doug. That was really nice, but now the true story is coming up. You know, Bud did get bitten in the butt by my dog. That dog I had, we got it out on the lake. I was out there with Bowden out on the lake in his boathouse, and the dog got on there while we were eating. Bowden didn't run him off or anything. We got back at the dock and putting everything up. Bowden says, Gus, get your dog. So I got the dog and took it home. Best thing he ever did was take care of Bud. Now, Bud was a character, and he's always caused me trouble. He worked down there. He was West High School. Norman Messrow was the football coach. He was an old tackle here. And then Bill Wright was the basketball coach. And Walt Gans later took Bill Wright's place. And he was a character, too. I mean, he was really something else. But Bud had all kinds of jobs. You know, I got Haywood to hire him. That's the worst thing I ever did. And we hired him and brought him in there. And Bob Woodruff gave him a good job. We got the Tennessee walking horse. And pre-game, he'd go around the state. So Woodruff had to have somebody to get a shovel and a bucket to follow the horse around. And Bud excelled at that. Good job on that. Bud he's always been, he was a good worker, did a good job for the university. Haywood hired him. Another thing he did, after he got out of West High School, down in Bearden, they opened up a Kroger's. And he got a job down there as a bag boy. And he was working there. He tried to unionize the bag boys. They fired him. Outside that, Bud's pretty good.
When I was in school, I worked at WIBK, and Gus, of course, he's been on the radio for over a half century doing the locker room, but he did also the Gus Manning Ball Report. And this was a daily show that was on WIBK. Bobby Denton had it on. Even Denton had some kind of ticket deal worked out, I'm sure. But anyway, but how Gus did this was Sunday nights. He would come in, and my job was to record Gus. And now Haywood wrote the scripts, and they're little, 2-minute deals. And but Gus wouldn't stop. It didn't matter if he screwed it up or messed it up. It was you push the red button and he'd run through the script and then he was done. It'd take about 15 minutes. And I'll never forget, we were playing basketball in the late 70s, UCLA, down in Atlanta. And it was a big game, national game, and they were playing at the Omni there in Atlanta, downtown, the old basketball arena. So Gus is getting his scripts going and he's getting about ready at the end and he goes, and so this week, Tennessee has a big game on Sunday afternoon as the Volunteers will play UCLA and John Wooden. And they'll be playing at the the basketball arena in Atlanta. This is Gus Manning. Just kept going. Didn't stop. He didn't say take two. We just keep going.
Let me tell you about one of the worst things that ever happened to me. Was when the 3 coaches got killed. When I was doing my program, at 7 o'clock in the morning, Carl Thomas was the DJ at that time. And I finished my program that particular day. This was after we tied Alabama and Birmingham 7-7. Doug Dickey's was the head coach at that time. And we had this program on, I did my program, my radio program at 7 o'clock in the morning. I got out and I saw this ambulance coming up Bearden Hill. And I looked in that ambulance and there's a guy had an orange blazer on. It was the 3 coaches that got killed down there. That ambulance driver, I went back home to have breakfast. The ambulance driver called me and I had to call Woodruff and tell him what had happened. He got a hold of Dickey. Those 2 guys went around, called those wives, which was a tough thing to do. Doug Dickey and Bob Woodruff did a tremendous job that morning. It's a sad day.
Our next person let's come up and talk about Gus is someone that Bud mentioned, and he's been around the program for a long time, and really was a traveling mate for you going down to the SEC basketball tournament all those years. Bill Petty. Where's Bill?
There are a lot of things I can say about Gus. He hired me in 1957 to be the guard for the football practice field. He got me in the press box opening game, and as a result of that, I saw every home game for 55 years as the result of what Gus started. Comments have been made, of course, Peyton talking about Gate 16. I was over there the afternoon that was dedicated. Peyton came up there and said, they've got 100 people in the athletic department today doing what Gus Manning did. And he wasn't far from being right. I don't know how many people they've got over there. When Gus was there, he did it all. As Bud alluded to, he had handled tickets. He alluded to those charts. Gus physically wrote in those, every season ticket holder in the stadium, separate charts, the sections. He managed the ticket office. In those days, they didn't have computers like my buddy Joe has today. They did it physically. He handled all travel arrangements. He arranged for the hotel for the teams, basketball, football, or whatever. He made the arrangements with the airlines. He secured buses for transportation to the airport, there to the hotel. He arranged for the police motorcycle escorts in town and out of town. He did it all, every bit of it. Did a great job. I've been very fortunate. I've been playing cards with Gus on Monday night for over 50 years. He's taken most of my money. We've had a great time. We were sitting there playing one night about 2 months ago. Phone rings. The phone's on the wall to the right. Gus is sitting to my left. I take the phone off the hook and hand it to Gus. Gus said, he's in the hospital. It's some telemarketing scam artist called him Gus Manning. 2 weeks later, the phone rings. I hand it to Gus. Gus says, we buried him last week. been comments made about Gus passing out the field money. We were in Nashville last year for the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. After it's over, Gus and I were walking out. Here comes Bobby Majors. He didn't say, "Hello, Gus, how are you doing?" He said, Gus, where's my meal money?" I've been very blessed to have this man as my friend. He's been a great friend to me, as he has to any and all of you. I appreciate everything Gus Manning's done. He's a real Tennessee man, as John Major said. They don't come any better than Gus Manning. He's been an asset to the University of Tennessee. And he's my friend, and I'm very thankful for that. Thank you.
Bill tells the truth, doesn't he?
I think he wants you to get into some more games, I think. He doesn't want you to.
Terrible card player.
He's not good at all. Somebody who's seen Gus as a player and as an assistant coach and as a head coach now is going to come up and talk a little bit about his relationship with Gus. Please welcome our Hall of Fame coach, Philip Fulmer.
Well, one, I want to say how great it is. I think that we're all gathered here tonight. I don't think there's many people that could pull this many people from so many generations together than what you've done here tonight, Gus. So congratulations on that.
I'm delighted to have them all here.
Well, you're all paid. I'm going to move along because I notice you're getting a little bit sleepy up here, so we won't keep you too long. But I feel a little bit in debt to Gus, obviously, for the great job he did while we were there together so many years as a head coach and assistant coach before that. I'm not sure what all he did, but whatever he did it well, because I never knew anything that screwed up, or you had a lot of good people around you for sure, Gus. That's always great. We've talked about, Dave, I was trying to think about what I was going to say. I was going to go around the fringes of some of the things that I knew about Gus and things, but that was out of the bag in about 2 minutes here. So we're gonna just talk about some other things. Gus was one of those guys, as you look at Tennessee football, that might be people say was behind the scenes. Well, that's not really true of Gus. Gus was very visible. From the standpoint, and thank God here at 93 years old, you're still visible and still with us, Gus. We appreciate that. Like everybody here, I've always been impressed with how you got to park that Gus Mobile, and that's exactly what we call it, in any place on campus that you wanted to. How did you do that, Gus? You want to explain that a little bit? No? Okay. But the Gus Mobile was legendary, as Peyton talked about just a little bit. And the training table, Gus, Gus always had time for the training table. And Dave, I've done a little math here. 65 years now, Gus, since you started in 1951. And if you just did $5 a meal, and you got to the training table 3 meals a day most of the time, I'm sure, for 65 years, Gus, I think you owe Dave Hart $355,000.
Dave Hart
just in
that was
meals.
part of my deal. 3 meals, right, Dave? Just 1 meal a day.
Just one. As everybody said, Gus is truly a legend in Tennessee history, and think about all that he did and who he worked for coming in with General Nealon, and I also, did a little homework and looking at all the things that you were responsible for. It was just incredible, and to say that you were crucial to the success of all the coaches and all the programs here would be an absolute understatement. When we won the national championship in '98, Gus was there and was in there, and I turned to him. Eventually, we had a little bit of time. I said, Gus, what'd you think of that national championship? And without missing an absolute beat, he says, well, you do know that's my second one, don't you? So you took all the air out of it right there. It was gone. So
We've oftentimes encouraged Gus to share his stories in a book, but he reminds us quickly that a lot of us, would, maybe him too, would either go to jail or certainly be getting a divorce. I don't know exactly what that meant, Gus, but that's what I hear. You know, I've gotten to see Gus in a lot of different environments as a player. I was one of those guys in the locker room that he was passing out the money. I never could understand, Gus, why Bobby Major's envelope was bigger than mine, but now I do.
You never did miss one.
But I always wanted to say thank you for all those times, because that was a special time when you walked through there and always had your briefcase with you, always had your cigar, your patented cigar, and if you really got right down to it, you'd have to say that Gus is the godfather of Tennessee football, and I mean that in every positive way you can. It's amazing when you look at it, who all you helped bring to us, you know, and at Tennessee. Haywood, obviously legendary as well. Bud Ford, you working with John Ward and all the folks at with the television stuff. You know, Dr. Julian. You know, that couldn't have been easy. You know, going through all of that and then overseeing the stadium and practice and the facilities, and as everybody said, especially the cheerleading and majorette corps. I'm really impressed with.
You always took us to the presidential inauguration too. Haywood and me, we were part of that group.
I knew you was getting something out of it. How did you surround yourself with all those beautiful ladies every year? I mean, everybody's talked about it. I didn't even know Coach Battle would notice something like that, you know.
You don't know him too well, do you?
But as I was looking at this, I'm trying to figure out, how do you get the attention of all these lovely ladies?
Well, I tell you,
and I don't think it's because you're harmless. No, I doubt that. No, I don't think it's your personality, but maybe
it is.
It's your personality. But everywhere you go, Gus has got pretty women kissing on him all the time. It's really pretty impressive. Most of those things in the program, there's some girl kissing on him. How do you do that, guys?
Coach, I don't really know.
Just got that charisma, but you know, when you look at all the people that Gus has worked for, General Nealon and Bob Woodruff and Doug Dickey and now still with Dave, he knows our history. And not only does he know our history, he's been part of making it. And as we look at all the things that you have accomplished, and you know our traditions, and we celebrate them with you, Gus. You are a really, really special man, and I'm honored to have the chance to have been a part of what you were trying to work for so hard, and especially tonight when we can celebrate something that's so special as your career. Appreciate you very much. That was nice, just like you told me.
Should I tell a story or two about Nealon? You know, Nealon was all business when he was in the office, and when he was out at Dean Hill, he was all play. He was a real taskmaster. He'd eat at the training table at 12 o'clock, and you didn't bother him until 2 because he'd go and take a little nap. And he would very easily get after you. One time he called me on the phone. He said, "Gus, come up here." Slammed the phone down. I said, "What the hell's wrong with him today?" So I went up there and he said, "Close that door." I closed the door, sat down. I said, "No, this is going to be something." He said, "We just got the bill from the Ponte Vedra Club." He said, "A lot of damn breakage in your room. What the hell's that all about?" He had Scrappy Moore, who was the coach at Chattanooga. You all may not know it, but we played Chattanooga the week before the Alabama game. And in that contract, he had to run the Alabama offense. So, but anyway, after the game there, the General had all the people in there. All his cronies were in there. Of course, one of them was Ray Jenkins, who was an outstanding lawyer. Ray always brought the criminal judge with him. He was a lawyer and very successful in his town, but he'd always bring the judge with him. I questioned that sometime, what happened there. But anyway, they got in there after the ball game. We played Bear Bryant, his last game at Texas A&M. We won that ball game with a field goal. Sammy Burklow kicked a 17-yard field goal to win the game. And after the game, they had the banquet stand. They threw the ball into the game ball, which was an authentic gator skin football. Gave it to the general. The general gave it to me to take it back to the headquarters. The headquarters was my suite. And after the game, they came back in there. General had all of his cronies there. They had a few cocktails together. So Scrappy was sort of a character, you know. Coach at Chattanooga, and he was in there, and he'd had his few drinks. General had had his few. And he told Scrappy, he said, "Scrappy, show us how we won that game." Scrappy put that ball down and kicked it. This big mirror in my room, it was shattered. They thought that was funny as hell. So a few more libations, and then they come up again. General told him, "Scrappy, show us how we won that game." This time I had this big, beautiful bay window suite looking out on the beach. This time he kicks it through the bay window. Goes out on the beach, I go retrieve it, put it in underneath my bed. So that's when he wanted to know what the breakage was and all that money they spent. He said, "What the hell is this all about?" I said, "That's where you and Scrappy were kicking those field goals." He said, "Wasn't a damn thing wrong with that." Signed it. General was a great guy to work for, though. I worried him to death, but we never had to serve food in the press box. And I kept telling him we ought to be serving food in there. And he didn't believe it, didn't think. So finally I kept pestering him all the time. He said, "By God, I'm tired of hearing this. Go ahead, go over at the training table and get some bologna, stick bologna, get some currant spread, get Pat Roddy and put some Coca-Cola down there, and serve the damn food to those guys." Anyway, he did it. I had to go to staff meetings on Monday morning with all the coaches. So he came up and he said, "Well, after I'd served the food that particular Saturday," he said, "Well, how did the food go over?" I said, "They loved it. They loved it." He said, "Didn't help the damn writing one bit." That's where the food started. It was named the stadium.
Our next roaster, this year had a great honor. She was named to the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. Of course, it's also a special time because she's a former Olympian as well. And to talk about Gus Manning and their relationship, please welcome Missy Kane.
Well, I am going to keep this short and sweet. I've known Gus about 30 some odd years, and we've been on a couple of committees together with the Lady Ball Sports Hall of Fame and now the Knoxville Sports Hall of Fame. And I always get my cheat sheet from Gus because he knows more than all of us about everything going on. But he liked that I wrote a poem one time in the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame because he said it was short and sweet, so I thought I would write one to honor Gus. I had a couple extra lines, but my husband Jim said they were a little bit too bad, so I'm going to listen to him. Here's to Charles Augustus Manning, otherwise known as Gus. He's been at UT more years than the age of most of us, 65 years and counting, and he still drives to work every day. He zooms around campus and beyond, so you better get out of the way. I remember going to a committee meeting downtown 10 miles away, and there's this Cushman by the curb, so don't report him, but please continue to pray. To his credit, Gus Manning is still as sharp as a tack, knowing all the history and stats about football, tennis, basketball, and even lady ball track. And speaking of gals, Gus and Hayward used to choose the majorettes for UTK. And as Gus would say, pretty girls can work as hard as a homely one any day. And I have a friend, Cindy Cunningham, back there, is a majorette. She's with me, and she appreciates that, right? But seriously, Gus is a legend and has guided us all through the years. From walk-ons to All-American, he has shown us how to be true volunteers. And best of all, my hubby lets me double date with him, because anytime we sit with Gus, it's a pleasure, he's a treasure, and a true friend. So, love you, Gus.
She was nice to you.
Very nice.
Our final roaster has worked with Gus for a long time as well. And she's the former athletics director at the University of Tennessee, Joan Cronin.
Joan, you be nice.
This has been so much fun. As Gus, as I was thinking about it, there's three things that we really know about Gus. We know he has a passion for the Big Orange. We know every age loves him, and especially the girls. And we always know where he stands, and he usually gets the last word. Two stories on Gus. We were at a softball game, and one thing that I loved about Gus, he shows up at all the sports, and he loves them, and he wants us always to win. So we're sitting at a softball game, and it's a really close game, and I'm a little nervous, and all of a sudden, into our box walks Jimmy Delaney and Todd Dooley, and they looked really serious. And they said, "Gus, could you come with us?" Well, they got up and left, and I was worried because I thought maybe something serious had happened, so I kind of trailed behind them. They walked up and they looked over the back of the stadium, and there was Gus's car. He was in his car, not his Gusmobile, and the windshield had been broken by a foul ball. Now, some of us might have got upset, but Gus looked at his windshield, looked back at the game, and he said, "Oh, blank, I can afford that. Let's go win the ball game." It was pretty easy. When I had the privilege of being named athletic director, one of the first people that called and asked for an appointment was Gus Manning. And I thought, I wonder what Gus wants. Well, he walked in and he said, "Joan, it's time for my contract to be renewed." He said, "Coach Dickey gave me a pretty good one, but I really need it renewed." And I thought, oh no, is this something I'm going to have to go to the board of trustees and get all approved? And I said, "Well, Gus, tell me what's in your contract." He said, "Well, it says I can drive my Gusmobile. It says I can eat one meal a day on the training table, and I get paid $1 a year." I said, "Gus, it's renewed, and it's renewed for life." Congratulations, Gus, and thanks for all you do for all of us.
Well, it's been a great night. Do you have any rebuttals you want to say? Anything else you want to say?
I just appreciate everybody being here. And I'm a Tennessee man to heart. Been on 93 years, you know. So I love it. I love it. I hope to see a lot of more games. I'm looking forward to this first game with Appalachian State. Appalachian State is 11-2 last year. They're not a bad team. They got one of our old favorite players in there on their coaching staff for 21 years. He's down in the same place Frazier comes from, Cleveland. Dale Jones. I always remember that interception he made at Legion Field. Shoeless pass enabled us to win the game.
Well, I can speak for everybody in this audience. You've been a great friend to all of us. You brought us laughter. You brought us joy. You've been such a wonderful friend to all of us. We thank you. It's a joy when you come around. It's a great
Could
pleasure.
you talk to those two guys that were up here and see if they get my money?
Do that. Let's give Gus a great hand for all he did. We love you.
What a wonderful evening. You know, the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame enjoyed celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and Gus Manning has been a part of it for 50 years. Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame started off by a loosely knit group of sports writers and broadcasters, and you know, it's kind of a renegade organization that evolved, and then Coach Dickey got involved and it became a permanent organization, and Gus has been involved in it from day one. And today it's a an organization that has scholarships, outreach, enjoys 7,300 square feet in the Bridgestone Arena. But how do you recognize and how do you honor somebody that has done it all? Well, the way you do it is you create things that have never been done. First, we want to make Gus Manning a board member of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame Emeritus. We've never had a board member emeritus of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. We want Gus to serve in that capacity. Second thing we did is we want Gus to be a historian for East Tennessee and for the University of Tennessee, because no one knows the history of sports, and not just sports at Tennessee. You can talk about baseball, you can talk about horse racing, you can talk about any sport, anything that's happened for the last 93 years, and Gus can tell you what's happened in the state of Tennessee. And then the third thing that you want to do is you want to create something that's really special. Now, if you go in Gus's closet and his drawers, he's got more bowl rings and watches and championship rings. He's got more jewelry than Tiffany's. But something that we thought would be special that we've never done, and we decided to do it last year, and we didn't get it done until this year. I want to thank Eddie Brown for helping me get it done. But we've created a ring for the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. And the very first ring ever issued, we want to go to Gus Manning. Because being the first of something can never be repeated. You're always first. And so Gus, this evening, I want to present you, well, two things. One is, and if y'all hadn't signed this, please sign it. This is something Gus can keep, and if you haven't signed it, please try to sign it on the way out. It's just a little card for Gus Manning, and so there's an orange pen out there, and if y'all would sign it. But the second thing that I want to do, Gus, is I want to present you with the very first Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame ring. And it represents something that no one else will ever have the first one. Just like this ring, Gus, you're an original and you're a Tennessee legend.